I was a musician for many years. I was a fiddle and bass player, played with a lot of early rock and rollers and country people. And I used to work horses from time to time. I used to wrangle on movies, and I used to work at the racetrack. And I got into doing some bit stuff and doing some stunts. I was the worst rodeo rider in the entire world. And first time somebody paid me to fall off my horse in a movie like I was shot, I went, I fall off, I get paid, I can do that part. But I was renting my art studio in the 80s from an agent, and they were doing the remake of The Lone Ranger, The Legend of the Lone Ranger. And she came down, she says, do you want to be Tonto on The Lone Ranger? And I went, no. I mean, that was a pretty stereotypical portrayal of Native people, but we loved Jay Silverheels. He, even with all that bad dialogue, he had such dignity, and we just loved him. But I said, no, I'm an American Indian Movement member. I do not want to be Tonto. She kept asking me. Like, I'm not interested. And then one day I said, well, what would they pay me? She said, oh, $40,000-$50,000. And I went, Kimosabi. So I didn't think they'd hire me. And I went down to talk to the director, a man named Bill Fraker. We became really good friends up until the time that he had passed away. Amazing, one of the best cinematographers in the business. And I said, if you use these same old stereotypes and you send Tonto to town one time, there's going to be more Indians on your lawn than Custer saw. Nope, I just went off.
No, you didn't.
Okay. So they ended up hiring me, which really surprised me a lot, and I had been on movie sets before, but I'd never seen a big film like that. I mean, I didn't even know there's a thing called a mark you're supposed to come in and stand on, and where they can film you. And I would come in and look down, and the crew would go, what are you looking for? I go, that thing I'm supposed to stand on. They go, you can't be looking for it. I go, how am I supposed to see it? But it didn't take me long to figure this was a really poorly written piece. And I figured out early, it's only going to be as good as it's written. If it's not on the page, you're going to have a hard time, really making something good. So when I get a piece, I really look for something that's well written. First met Mr. Lynch. He doesn't remember this. It was a brief meeting, but I was living in a place called Topanga Canyon, an amazing place, a little canyon right between Santa Monica and Malibu, when you could still afford to live back there. And there were a lot of artists and musicians and writers. And Dean Stockwell, who's been in some of David's pieces, and Dr. Jacoby, Russ, they were my neighbors. And I ran into them, and they had David with them. And later on, I said, who was that guy? And they said, oh, he's a filmmaker. And I said, I've never seen any of his stuff. And they showed me the film The Grandma, which predates Eraserhead. And I went, wow, that's an interesting guy, but I never thought I would ever have the opportunity to work with him, And then later on, a friend of mine, Joanna Ray, who cast at Twin Peaks, she said, David's doing a small piece for the French Bicentennial with Harry Dean, Harry Dean Stanton, another story. I've known Harry Dean for a million years, and every time I would run into him, he would act like he didn't know who I was. And Grace told me, don't take that personally. Grace worked with him a lot. She said, I think the 60s was very good to Harry. So we had a lot of fun doing that. And I said, what are you going to do next? He said, a TV series. And I said, for cable? He goes, no, for regular television. Yeah, you call me when that happens. But then came Twin Peaks. We all knew we were doing something very special, and David, if you ever get a chance, he is everything you think he is and more. David is, sometimes the word genius is bandied around, but David is a true artist. David and I have a lot of similarities in our early lives. We both started as painters and mixed medium artists, and we do it for the love of it. I mean, if David wasn't making films, he, just like now, he'd be in his studio just, trying to put a fish back together or something, or building a lamp, And he is such a kind, sweet man. I mean, I've even seen him a couple of times. He'll get frustrated trying to explain what his vision is to an actor or a crew. But I've worked on a lot of movie sets with a lot of different directors and crew people, and I've never seen more trust and belief from his actors and from his crew. They all know that David's going to take them into a great place. Twin Peaks changed the way that people process television. There were changes in format, roots, in dialogue, all in the family, but not in that actual physical way that you process television. Everything that's out there now that's good is somehow got Twin Peaks' DNA all over it. So I'm really, really proud of it. People would ask me, is it coming back? And I went, no, I don't think so. I never thought it would. And I thought that it actually shouldn't, because it kind of died early. That was part of its mystique, kind of like a lot of the early, like James Dean, But it took 25 years for it to come back. And people said, what was it like? It was like no time had passed. And I was wondering, I said, oh, Kyle's a big star now around the B. And the first day of shooting, here comes Kyle out of the woods, all dressed in the black out. And he goes, hi, Michael. And I went, okay, I wonder where this is going to go. And people said, are you going to be in it first? And I went, well, nobody's called me. And, David called me and he said, hey, buddy, we're getting a gang back together. And I said, you got something for me? I would have just been happy to just do a little cameo, but they were really generous in the amount of time that they gave the Hawk. I didn't realize, I didn't do a lot of the fan things for a long time, because that's really not what I do. And when I started doing it again, I didn't realize that the love that people have for this character, the Hawk. My wife will ask me sometimes, why aren't you as cool as the Hawk? I said, no, nobody's as cool as the Hawk, And, that whole area up there, there's a lot of legends up there from the people that live up there. There's I'm the most un-New Age guy in all of the Berkeley area, but there's medicine up in that area. And also it was interesting, the area where we shot Twin Peaks became a character. A lot of films, John Ford's films with Monument Valley or Whale Rider, and they became part of the actual characters. Oh my God, we have a guest appearance. Look, everybody, Carlos. Say hello, Carlos. Look, it's Carlos. Oh, Carlos loves his fans. When my wife goes, do you want an Instagram? And I went, I don't know. And then I was so excited. I went, look, me and Sting, I got 75 likes. She goes, Carlos has over 3,000. I went, that's pretty humbling. When I went over to Europe to Twin Peaks Festival, we said, did Carlos come? No, Carlos didn't come. Well, let me see what we got else, other stories on here.
Tell them all the gifts they gave you for Carlos.
Oh yeah, people were bringing me little cat gifts. They were bringing me cat food, little cat toys. I thought that was so sweet. Let me see here. Stories. Twin Peaks stories. Really interesting. People ask me, what was one of my favorite scenes? The scenes where Kyle was throwing the rocks at the bottles, doing the Zen thing. David says, go and put these oven mitts on. So I got these oven mitts on. I go, what does this mean? They went, nothing. We just wanted to see you in oven mitts. And I went to grab the pot and they went, no, grab it like this. And I don't know, a lot of you are too young to remember the old Kung Fu series, but I went, it's Kung Fu. There was a scene in there that after David Carradine had graduated from his Kung Fu training, he had to pick up a hot pot and it would burn two little dragons into the side. So I was just laughing, you know. Everybody says, oh, sometimes David's just trying to be strange. Mm-mm. Nothing that David does uh, is just thrown away. I mean, it's all everything that he wants to do has a meaning. Sometimes I don't know what it is. I can't figure it out, but that doesn't mean that there's not something deep going on in David's head. You know, sometimes you fans are so smart. Sometimes I got to get on the internet and figure out exactly what it is that I meant. You know, oh yeah, it is about the bunnies. And another really really funny story is the first time we were going into the cabin to see the essence of Bob. And where do we go here?
You're still there. You're still there, Michael.
Okay.
Keep talking.
Yeah. So it was Mr. Onkeen and Kyle and me. And Onkeen, just love him dearly, great guy, but he was vegetarian. Sometimes he would have some pretty serious gas. So I guess he passes wind, and Kyle turns around to me and he's got a look on his face, you know, with eyes just wide open, and I turn around and I'm going, oh my God, and then I went action. So we went in that room so that this look like that is actually we're trying to escape from Mr. Onkeen's gas. And the last time we filmed, we're across the street. I'm supposed to go over and see Grace, and they said, okay, go over to Laura Palmer's house. So I go over to the house, and they went, no, that's not where she lives, because all the where I was sitting was in front of another house. And I went, well, I don't know, I was never invited over there. They were all laughing. Yeah. But yeah, David is a most amazing person. So let me see, what other stories do I have?
You know, did you talk about the Black Lodge?
Oh yeah, the meaning of the Black, you know, the Black Lodge is a real place in Native culture. It's a place where, you know, there's really no good or bad medicine. There's just medicine, and the Black Lodge is a part of that whole mythical thing. You know, a lot of animals up there, a lot of stories about you know, the medicine and the stories that the animals in that area brought to the people. You know. What other stories do I have? That had more stories than that.
You have a million stories. What about the giant?
Oh, the giant, amazing, sweet man, wonderful man. And I guess his wife taught on the Navajo reservation for years and years. And, you know, I was telling him, I said, was that kind of life-changing? He said, oh, yeah. You know, every teacher or clerical person that I've talked to that have gone to do things, you know, in the Native community, they really has changed their whole life in the way that they look at things.
And then the difference between the first series and the second one, the more recent one.
Well, I've already kind of talked about the the difference between the two series. This time it was a lot better because Lynch didn't have the restraints of the networks telling him what to do. They were really kind of frightened of David. They kept, oh, he's a genius, and they go, how do we figure to get this? So they just did not understand it, you know. But they do now. What else? What other stories? I thought I had more stories.
You have a million stories. Why don't you talk about when you're younger? I'm sure people want to know, like, what's the evolution of Michael Horse? Right? Don't y'all want to know? Like, he's got so many stories. But talk about when you left home at 16.
Oh, yeah. I was dyslexic. I had a hard time, you know, reading. I couldn't read for very long, and finally couldn't do it anymore. So I quit school, and I took off and headed towards New York. You know, I've all heard those stories about New York City, and so I took my violin with me because I didn't want to take the guitar because it was too heavy. And you know, back then the truck drivers would pick you up and they would just drop you off in the middle of nowhere, where I got to turn here and go pick up some corn or something. So it might be 4 hours in the cold till somebody would pick you up. So I would just sit there and play that violin, and I got good at it, you know. And I hit New York and
Wait. There's that in-between part, the young boy with too long braids getting stuck in southern towns.
Oh yeah. You know, it was a pretty much saved my life. I would be in some small towns and people would go, "What are you? Musician. Are you any good? God, I hope so." And I got to New York and it was February and you know, I had a little tiny jacket on and out of this old hotel, this woman pokes her head out and she goes, you just get here? And I went, "Yes, ma'am." And she goes, "You know anybody in New York?" I went, "Mm-mm." She goes, "You got any money?" I go, "I got $15." She goes, "Put that away and have the doorman ring you up because you're going to stay with me because you're going to die." And I got to live with Nina Simone. She kind of took me in for a while. And she was a harsh old lady and she was pretty tough and pretty bitter, but she was really kind to me. And I guess she lived in Georgia and her husband and they would sometimes fight a little bit and then she would go stay in this hotel. But it was you know, she would tell me stories. You know, I thought I knew a lot about music and she says, "Oh no, this was written back in the 40s by such and such." And, you know, a lot of famous people would come by that hotel, Carole King and Leonard Cohen. And so it was pretty fascinating time for, you know.
Leonard Cohen lived upstairs, right?
Yeah, Leonard Cohen lived upstairs, and when I finally got my own place, and I could kind of hear him through the ceiling, and my would call my mom. She said, "How you doing?" I said, "Yeah, I'm okay, but I'm a little down." And my mom knows I never get down, and I realized I was listening to all Leonard Cohen's music. You know, the Sisters of Mercy. But yeah, I played music for, you know, I played with a lot of famous people. I'm not even going to mention, you know.
Why not?
No, I just don't want to. But um, I got pretty good at it, but I just got tired of being on the road. It's something I never really wanted to do. And, you know, and sometimes I'm a really good musician and a good singer, and sometimes I'm not, you know. So, you know, consistency is something you really kind of need if you're going to make a career out of it. And I don't like to rehearse, which is not good for, but yeah, I played a lot of early places in Texas, played the old Armadillo Club, used to see Stevie Ray Vaughan sleeping on the pool table at night, you know. Um, got to work with Leon Russell. Leon Russell and I did a lot of stuff for Sonny and Cher back in the day. And, you know, it's a whole different time, but basically I'm an artist. I'm a jeweler. I made that for myself. You know, and I'm most happy when I'm in my studio, you know, making jewelry or painting or cutting rocks. And I do a type of native folk art called ledger art. And about 4 or 5 of us kind of brought this art form back. We used to paint on hides. That was our history book, our calendar. We could roll it up and take it with us. There would be little pictures that would, you know, we're an oral society, but these pictures would remind the storytellers of things that would happen, great migrations, incidents in the heavens, holy people being born, you know, wars. And then on the reservation, hides not so available. We started painting on scrap paper, mostly the ledger books that took records of things that were brought to the settlements and to the reservation. And I used to work for the Museum of the American Indian in New York, and you know, I'm not really a painter. You know, don't leave me in a museum because I'm going to go through everything you got. And I went through their paper archives and went, "Oh my God, what is this?" And even though I'm not a Plains native person, I grew up with a lot of Plains guys, so I know a lot about their culture, and I was fascinated by it. And I used to just kind of draw pictures while I was at shows doing my jewelry. But after a while, I got pretty well known for being a ledger artist. And it's my history from my point of view. I mean, I've seen the battle hides of the Battle of Little Bighorn. You know, for years they said, "Oh, Custer was up on the hill," and no, the Sioux and Cheyenne goes, "No, this is what happened. The idiot rode right into the middle of the camp during while we were all taking a nap." So it's you know, and I'm still doing it. You know, I'm always going to do jewelry.
Your latest ledger painting.
Oh, my latest ledger painting is of the stupid QAnon guy with the buffalo hat with somebody shooting an arrow, and you know, what's up with that guy? You know. And I don't mean to ramble, but I'm trying to, my
What
wife.
other movies have you been in?
Oh, I was in a lot of television. I go all the way back to Knight Rider. Lots of Walker, Texas Rangers, bunches of Walker, Texas Rangers. One that runs Passenger 57, runs a lot with Wesley Snipes, and a lot of old westerns. Just about every Western TV series, I was doing something, falling off a horse or getting on a horse or being chased on a horse, or X-Files. I was on Chris Carter and I were kind of friends. We knew each other. People don't know that he was an artist. He was a potter before he ever did any of that stuff. And his favorite line, I did the one about the shapeshifter werewolf, which he told me was one of the only two real cases, FBI case files, X-Files. And his favorite line is when Mueller goes into the bar, there's an old native guy in the back. He says, "Go home, FBI." And I did an amazing series in Canada, which was one of my favorites. It was called North of 60. And it was most of it written by Native people, directed by Native, and had wonderful Canadian Native actors. Tantu Cardinal, which is just, she's the Meryl Streep of Native actresses. Gordon Tsusis, a lot of young guys that are now doing, Native guys are now in bigger series, but it was just a joy to do. And I was one of the only two Native people from the United States to ever be on that series.
Right.
Oh, and I just, it's really funny. My agent calls sometimes just with the most bizarre. My career is an experiment in bizarre booking. I will go stuff that's written for me, like Young Guns, and go, no, we're going to give it to this guy. Or, my agent calls and says, they want you to be on something about a nail salon and the mob. And I went, huh? So I went, no. And she goes, you better watch this and see it. It was called Claws. And it is so funny and has these amazing, wickedly talented Native actresses. What's the lady that stars in that?
Oh, I'm bad about names.
Yeah, but all these great character actresses, and I was so excited because I love New Orleans. Being an old musician, I just wanted to go down and hang out in the streets down there and hear the music. And but the worst clothes I ever had to wear. I said, "Where's my stuff?" And they went, "Right there." I said, "The red and blue checkered golf pants and the yellow cardigan sweater and the lime green slip-on shoes." And they went, mm-hmm. So, nothing's free. But it was I'm a comedic actor. I really like to do, and I did something. You want to see one of my?
Hey, tell them who you were in that show. That was hilarious.
Oh yeah,
character.
Yeah, we created a tribe that didn't exist, so we could get a casino, so we could scam all these people. It was really my wife and I.
Not this one, the other one.
Yeah. What's it? Oh, there's one of my favorite films. You can get it on demand. It's called Dead Ant, A-N-T. It's about a 70s hair band called Sonic Grave, and they've been trying to get back into the business. And they're going through the desert, and they meet an old guy out there who's got some peyote, and they ask for it, and he goes, "No, I'm not giving it to you." And they beg, and he said, "Okay, but you go out to the sacred place. You say your prayers and you have respect, or things will happen." Well, they mess with stuff and giant ants come. It's so funny. And Sean Astin's in it, Gary Busey's son, and which I knew ever since he was little because Gary and I were friends. And one of the guys from the Entourage and the girl from the L Word, and a little person who's a friend of mine. And I'm going blank on his name, but he's done a lot of stuff, and he was fun to work with, and that's one of my favorites that I've ever done. And I do a lot of animation voices. I mean, Captain Planet, Batman, Superman, the Hulk. Spirit was my favorite. If you've ever seen it, it's just an old time animation, and that was wonderful to do. I mean, about 6 or 7 of us did all the voices in it. I'm the old Native woman that didn't show up one day. I had to do her voice, and animation people are all the people that you went to school with that used to make gas noises sent to the principal's office, and people that had imaginary friends. Worked with the lady that's on the Rugrats. She's Phil and Lil, and I watched her be Phil and Lil and another character, and she's having a three-way conversation with herself. And I went, "Were you locked in a closet as a child?" And I have a friend named Frank Volker, and he's does animal voices. He was the hummingbird in Pocahontas and Toucan George of the Jungle, and I did a Curious George, who was great, and he was the monkey, and he was heckling me as a monkey when we were working. But I think Frank had imaginary pets when he was little.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So what do you think your life would have been like without Twin Peaks, and how has Twin Peaks shaped you?
Boy, like I said, if I never worked and never did another film again ever, just having it done Twin Peaks would be enough. I'm so proud of it, and it's, you don't get many chances, especially in television, to do art. It's usually about money. It's usually a commercial thing. So to actually do something that artistic you don't get those chances. So I just consider myself a very, very lucky person to have done that. And the respect from other actors is amazing. When we were in New Orleans, they were filming a lot of other things in a hotel, and some of the people would just come up and say, "Oh, you don't know what Twin Peaks did." When we were filming the second one in Los Angeles, there were directors and actors and crew people that would come up and say, I don't want to disturb Mr. Lynch, and we'd be on the street, but we just want to thank him for everything he's done. And he's a very, very humble, sweet guy, and you go, that's really nice. It's really funny. The only time the most angry I've ever saw him is as Mr. Bellucci went off script, and David likes to work with the old time megaphone kind of thing, and he goes, "Mr. Bellucci, do you need to go to the principal's office?"
Doesn't he say something about do it good this
time? Oh yeah, I said, "Okay, this time do it, but do it good."
He's such a 50s kind of guy.
Yeah. He's a kind of I describe him as Jimmy Stewart with Salvador Dali's intestines.
Super sweet. Yeah.
What other kind of stories can we put in there?
I don't know, Michael. You have way more Twin Peaks stories.
I do?
Yes, you do. Like there's all the characters that you've interacted with that you like, and
Oh,
things that have happened.
Joan Chin.
Uh-oh.
She was an interesting person. She was one of the very few that I didn't get close to. And one day she came with Rutger Hauer from The Hitcher, and I guess they were kind of going together, and he's kind of off stage, kind of the director. And I kept kind of looking at him like this, and he's looking at me like, "You looking at me?" No, sir, no. He was scary. And a lot of old character actors. I mean, Piper Laurie. I mean, a lot of you don't know Piper Laurie from when started her career in the 50s, and when she was the Japanese man, she was so good. I was standing next to her and did not know that was her. Somebody had to tell me, that's Piper. And Jack. Oh God, I love Jack. I knew Jack before because my agent handled me, Jack, and Viva from Warhols, old gang. And even before I got into films, I see Jack over my agent's house one day, and because I rented a little studio from her. I said, "Hey, Jack, I'm a pretty out there guy. What the heck did Eraserhead mean?" And one of my prized possessions, I have a picture from him from Eraserhead, and says, "Figure it out yet? Love, Jack." But everything made sense through Jack's eyes. I mean, like something would happen, like Moosehead would fall off or something, and me and Everett, I used to hang with Everett, Big Ed, and a lot when we were filming. And I go, "Do you understand this?" He goes, "I don't get this. Let's go ask Jack." And Jack would go, "See, when this came down, that meant that this whole other section was going to be launched into a whole different dimension and all that. And we'd walk away going, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. And also I knew, like I said, I knew Jack. I used to, I got tired of being a musician, of being on the road, and I didn't want to. I was living down in Venice, California, back in the 70s, and Jack lived down there, and I was working. I was running a liquor store for a couple nights a week, and one day I worked early in the morning, and here comes Jack. The minute I opened up, and I go, wow, Jack, what are you doing? He says, I know you don't get up this early. And he goes, yeah, I got up and realized I didn't have any hot water, and I was going to complain to the superintendent till I realized I was the superintendent. So I escaped. But yeah, I will deeply miss Jack. He was an exceptional person. And the log lady, she was something. She was so sweet and kind. But when she was the log lady, she was the log lady. Like a friend of mine, another native person, came to visit, and I went up and I said, oh, look at the log. And I picked a tiny little piece off the log, and she slapped me upside my head. It's like I pinched her baby. But, people ask me, they say they were really touched by the scene when I was saying goodbye to her, and why didn't I cry? And I said, I didn't want to be sad. I wanted to show how really brave she was to do that, but she was a exceptional person. And that, that it's a very native way of looking at things, that nature will give you insight. Nature will talk to you if you take the time to listen. What else?
Yeah.
She said, yeah.
I agree.
How long we've been telling stories?
Yeah, maybe one more.
Yeah.
Just one more good one. I mean, they're all good, but have you talked about all the other cast of characters? Did you tell the Bob story? How did Bob be Bob?
Oh, I think everybody knows how Bob was Bob. Yeah,
okay.
That's pretty much one long story. And when David says, "Oh, look, that's Bob," and he went, "No, I don't want to be Bob," and he goes, "You're Bob." "No, I don't want to be." He was another really, really sweet guy, And yeah, it was just so much fun to do, But while we were filming up there in those areas, there were times seriously I would stop and they go, "What's the matter?" I said, things are talking to me up here. There's spirits up in this place up here. There's legends and in those mountains and those forests.
And do you know how David Lynch chose that location?
He likes trees. Was interesting when we did the premiere of the second season down in Los Angeles. Showtime had not seen any of it, and they spent a lot of money, and they came out and said, "We're so excited about this, and Mr. Lynch, would you come out and say something?" He goes, "This series has lots of wood. I like wood. Thank you." But yeah, it became a character. The woods up there became a character, just like the rest of us.
So you ready for a little bit of a break, Michael?
Yeah, we'll take a little break and we'll ask some questions.
Okay, so we'll Shannon's gonna cue up the video for just like 3 minutes and take a bio break, grab a glass of water, do whatever you need to do, and then we'll all be back here in 5 minutes. And please enjoy this video.
Climate chaos when the law treats the earth as property. Movement Rights works with tribes and communities to align human laws with the laws of nature by recognizing the role of laws and corporations in the destruction of our world. Corporations use current laws to exploit what we need to simply exist while creating wealth for the few. We work with Indigenous people who have always known that human activity must take place within the natural system of laws that govern life on Earth, and we work with local, national, and global climate allies and communities to help people connect the dots for system change. Movement rights is in the streets, it's in the news, and in the courts, providing research and reports, convening strategic gatherings, speaking at the UN, community meetings, regulatory hearings, and more. There is still time to come together for change. Support the movement for rights of nature and Indigenous rights today with your contribution to movement rights.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Maybe give you just a couple more seconds to get settled. And Shannon's going to curate the questions, and then that will spur Michael to have more stories, and we all get to enjoy that. Thank you.
Hey, you want to put me back on the big screen?
Yeah, there you go. Shannon, you got the questions?
I do. Sorry, the YouTube video was kept running stuff, so I had to shut that down. So we have a lot of questions, and some of them we may have answered in part, but I'm going to go ahead and ask a few of these that we have. Garth and his household want to know, what are some of your favorite movies or TV shows? What have you been doing since quarantining?
Okay, some of my favorite TV shows. That's a really good question. Let me think a few minutes on what I really favorite shows I really liked. Well, it's interesting growing up. You guys are really lucky. Growing up in the 50s was a bunch of really bad television. Leave It to Beaver and all the, well, now one of my favorite TV shows is what's the alien show?
Resident Alien.
Resident Alien. I just think it's so funny, and last episode had to deal with a lot of Indigenous people and how they see aliens in their culture, and American Gods I like, Legion I like, Preacher is one of my favorites. The last 10 years in television, there's been just exceptional pieces. I mean, especially these miniseries. The first True Detectives was just amazing because a lot of movies now are just, car chases and, big events. And like I said, I like storytelling, so these miniseries allow for development of character. And the new Tom Hanks movie, the News of the World, I thought was just wonderful, just lovely. I mean, people for years say, "Oh, westerns are dead." No, they just weren't written properly. So, here comes Yellowstone, or like that, and people go, "Oh, these are interesting." What have I been doing in quarantine? I've been painting, playing with my grandson and my chickens, and Carlos, Milagro, Carlos's brother. Gardening, lots of gardening, and it's been nice. Been quiet. I'm getting ready to go back to work, and I've had my second vaccine, so I'm looking forward to seeing what's out there for me. I've turned down a bunch of things now. I'm older. I just don't. It's not so much about the money. It's about the piece that I've done in the last 4 or 5 years. I've been able to work with a lot of young film students. Sometimes they, my agent won't even return their calls, and they'll get a hold of my wife, and my wife goes, "This film student's looking for you." And I'll tell them to old school me, tell them to call me. And one guy called and he said, I got this film and I can give you like $1,000. And I said, it's not about the money. Are you good? And he goes, "Yeah, I'm really good." So, well, send me some of your stuff. And I said, "Yeah, I'll do it for you." And then I went there. I stayed in his sister's bedroom with all her stuffed animals while she was away at college. And but wonderful filmmakers. I get a chance to help these young filmmakers out. Also, hope one of them is going to be the next genius. So, but yeah, I'm looking for the stories. It's starting to change. For years it was just it was Last of the Mohegans and Thunderheart, and what happened in this, I'm fascinated by talking to elders. What was it like being an Indigenous person in 1920, 1930, 1940, that whole time of relocation when people left the reservations to go get jobs that the government would give them within the cities. That's why places like Chicago or New York or Los Angeles or the Bay Area have huge native populations. People came to work in the aircraft industry and work in the ship industry. And, what was that like? But that's, there's a whole bunch of new filmmakers. There's a wonderful filmmaker, Sterling Harjo, that it's just doing incredible films. And I was on the board of the Native American Film Institute and Festival in San Francisco, the oldest Native American film festival in the country, and had a chance to see the evolution of indigenous films, so I'm very excited about the future of it.
And actors.
And actors, young, great young.
It's like it's not okay for them to cast native roles.
It's not, the process of acting is to portray something that you're not. But if you don't bring somebody that comes with the culture, you're going to cheat yourself of why you wanted to make the film. And sometimes they don't get it. After I'd done Twin Peaks, people would say, "Oh, you want to play like Sitting Bull or something?" I said, "Do you ever see what Sitting Bull looked like?" I said, "No," but I've had a chance. I got to play Quanah Parker, which was the chief of the Comanches, who was half Anglo, half Comanche, and really a serious badass warrior. Got to play him, and got to play Dennis Banks, one of the leaders of the American Indian movement of AIM. And he was a friend of mine. That was a great honor, and got to play a lot of chiefs and holy people, and it's.
Ready for another question?
Yeah.
Okay, so Kenneth wants to know that he learned that you designed and drew the living map in The Return, and what inspirations did you draw upon when you were creating it? And Anne wants to know if you ever got your map back.
Oh, yeah. So David says, we want to do the map. Would you do the map? And I went, oh, yeah, I'd love to do the map, and because he'd seen my paintings, fascinated by my paintings. And then he said, well, how much do you want? And I said, oh, no, it's an honor. It's a gift, And Sabrina said, that's probably worth about 10 grand, And I said, well, I don't have any of your work, David. Can I just have a small drawing? And one day, one of his big, huge prints came from his show in Paris, signed to me, one of the artist proofs, which is, again, one of my great treasures. But yeah, he said, I want certain things in it and the rest you can do, and I think it turned out pretty good. And then a lot of people said, well, we want prints and stuff. And I said, well, where is it? And they go, it's missing. I go, oh man, if I would have known somebody that was easy to steal, I'd have stole it. But I hear they found it again, so maybe they'll make prints for everybody. But yeah, it was wonderful to do, and it was done in the old style with the traditional height. A lot of the paints I use are mineral paints, and I mix it with a little mineral oil and the last of the glue that's made from animal rendering, just like they used to do in the old days. And, that was really cool to do. Oh, Mr. Forrester. Oh, I've had a chance to work with a lot of these great old guys, and I just want to hear their stories, and first couple of days he goes, Michael, I don't get this. I go, you're not going to get all of it, and once he realized that and just went with the flow of things, he was so happy. He was having so much fun, but I said, sir, come on, let me take you out and buy you dinner and a couple of drinks. And, he told me the whole story about how he got into the business. And, I had a chance to work with a lot of these old actors before they passed, and, and hear their stories.
Fred would like to know, and TMZ probably too, how you and Penny met.
Oh, well, Penny and I known each other for a long time. We would show up, I used to do a lot of the shows of the native art shows and the powwows, and Penny would show up on her motorcycle with her boyfriend, and I was with somebody else then, but I go, oh gosh, look at that woman, she's amazing. And then that opportunity where we were both, were kind of single, and I went right through there.
And I said, but you're my brother. You're like my brother. You're my friend.
Oh, and, people, all my other friends, everybody, man, everybody went, how did you do that? And I said, I promised to make her laugh every day. And that was kind of the deal,
And he has fulfilled that.
And people said, you're such a good guy. And I said, I have to be, she'll leave me, I've got to be worthy or I'm gone.
That's true.
So another question we have is from a Dead Ant fan. Who wants to know, is that an ant behind you, which it clearly is, and if you want to share anything about the ant behind you.
Oh yeah, like I said, that's a Hopi legend of the story of the ant that came through in a bubble and cosmos came to the earth.
That's the extent of the story that we have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a story that takes a whole day, but it's a Hopi story and it's not our story. So.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah, Dead Ant was so much fun. It was just so much fun to do.
So Richard says that he met you a few years ago in the Mission District, and you told him a quick anecdote about delivery mail in Haight-Ashbury in the 60s.
Oh, yeah. I was up, I was up in the Bay Area, and they used to give veterans first chance of the civil servant jobs, and I said, I want one. I don't have to get a haircut, and so I was the mailman in Haight-Ashbury for a while. It was a very interesting job.
What years?
Huh?
What year?
End of 69 into first part of 70.
Summer of Love.
Yeah, people would pop out of the park going, got any mail for me? Hippies, and I went, no, you need an address and pants. Maybe not in that order. Oh, I delivered to Janis Joplin's mail and the Grateful Dead's mail, and it was a very interesting time.
To say the least. So Twin Peaks question. What does the symbol of an owl mean to you, and what do you believe it to represent in the realm of Twin Peaks?
Well, there's a lot of legends of the owls, and they're different for each tribal community, but basically they're messengers, and a lot of people say that they're messengers of death and evil, but not so. And owls are actually really sweet creatures. They're really, they're really gentle, really sweet. Some people have them for pets, It's the screech owl that I'm told in my culture, the little owl, that's the one, like there'll be owls hooting and stuff out here. They, somebody goes, well, what does that mean? I don't know, but the screech owls are the one that's supposed to mean that somebody is passing. Funny story, I was working on a film and I was coming home. We were down in Los Angeles, and it was really, really early in the morning. Sun was just coming up, and I hit an owl. Biggest owl I'd ever seen. It was a large owl, and I felt so bad. And nocturnal animals, I can't touch nocturnal animals for certain reasons. And so I got out and I told him I was sorry, and I laid some tobacco down. And one of the crew members had seen that. Next day he goes, I saw you hit that owl. Was that bad luck? I go, well, I don't know about me, but the owl's luck was definitely up. Yeah, but the owls in Twin Peaks are definitely messengers. There's a connection there. They're watchers. They're great observers of things. And usually, when a bird is, it can mean nothing and can mean everything. Sometimes there's ravens talking to me out here, and I'm going out and I know they're trying to tell me something. Sometimes I know what they're trying to tell me. Sometimes I don't. But yeah, the owls they're definitely messengers in Twin Peaks.
And somebody just wants to know if David Lynch understood that.
Oh, of course he did. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we have another question here from Serge, who says, how much of David Lynch is in Twin Peaks and how much is Mark Frost? There seems to be a lot of fifth wall history lessons to be learned in the series, especially the third season. In your opinion, is there more Mark Frost or David Lynch or equal parts of both? And what does that mean?
It depends on episodes. It depends, people don't give, Mark is an amazing man. Mark has a great insight, especially into the Hawks character and to history. I had done the audio version of the book, Secret History of Twin Peaks, and I was listening to all of it because I hadn't heard the whole thing in the car, and there was a thing about Aleister Crowley and the other guy that was the rocket scientist and Nixon and all this stuff and the guy that started L. Ron Hubbard and all. And I had to pull over and I called Mark. I go, "Is this true?" He goes, "Yeah, it's all in Nixon's archives." But yeah, Mark, people don't give Mark the credit for being the amazing writer he is. Like I said, I'm a fan of the page. So, it's I don't know if it's equal. I don't know if it's not equal, but yeah, it's the combination of the both of them they work very well together.
Anne would like to know about Catherine Coulson.
Yeah, the log lady. Yeah, she's right. Like I said, amazing person, and she was married to Jack. They were married at one time. So, and then everybody kind of like always, all Jack's exes still kind of took care of Jack. But yeah, we were friends.
Okay. What was The Secret History your first audiobook?
Oh, no. I do a lot of voiceover work. I've done a lot of I used to do murder mysteries, romance novels, technical, I did a lot of books on tape.
This question feels like maybe it's for the both of you, for Penny, but it's sometimes hard to be consciously involved in activism and not feel overwhelmed. I know you've both been involved in the salmon water protests and many Native American issues. How do you avoid burnout and maintain an optimistic perspective in troubling times?
Well, I think for myself, you have to realize that it's always going to be an ongoing fight. When we did things and sometimes people go, "Oh, well, we beat this." No, you have to constantly keep at it. And yeah, it's I think even more so for Penny, it's hard sometimes to deal with the fact that things are going slower than they should. It's that people aren't right, especially with climate change, that people aren't rising to the occasion. I mean, they should have been dealing with this years and years ago, and I'll let her deal with this really quick. But I'd always figured this machine that eats up everything, that runs on fossil fuel, that destroys water and forest and land and animals, and every now and then you just got to put a stick in that wheel and slow it down. And Penny will tell you how she feels.
I think being older, I've been working on, protecting and defending Mother Earth and the sacred system of life for over 40 years now. And I think that as an older person, I can see that looking back, especially the last 100 years, that there are increments of justice and there's increments of movement for the health of the sacred system of life. And that's the important thing to pay attention to. It's like when I look over the last 40 some odd years, there are very few things that I would consider a real win. Like, we won this. There's just less than a handful. But when I look at the culture shift that's happened over that period of time, it's very profound. And now we have all these tools that we didn't have when I first started, where we can get messages out to huge numbers of people, and it can be an interactive communication because of social media. And so I think it's important not to devolve into any kind of depression, because we don't have time for that. So I've had conversations with parents, mostly mothers, and they go, well, I'm so depressed. And it's like, you know what, that you don't have time for that. We don't have time for you to be depressed. I mean, you can go ahead and indulge yourself that way if you want, but you're not doing your children any favors. You're not doing the water any favors. It's time to like get your big girl pants on, your big boy pants on, and look around and see what skills and talents and gifts you have to offer, literally, to ensure that, all the babies to come have a world that is at least a little as enjoyable as the one that we've had in our lives.
You're taught in Native culture to think, 7 generations ahead. How is this going to affect my children and my grandchildren and their children and their children? And a lot of people are very selfish. They say, well, I don't care. I'll be gone soon. And, well, that's, how are you going to, what kind of a place are you going to leave? And for your fellow creatures, the ones that swim and fly and, how do you feel about them? You owe them something.
So a couple of people have related questions. I'm going to join them together. Did it ever get spooky on the set of filming Twin Peaks? Some of the actors seemed like they went into some pretty deep, dark places portraying characters from the lodge. And do you believe in the Black Lodge? What can you say about that?
Sure. Yeah, sure. There's places, I'll tell you a really interesting story. Like, like I said, again, I'm the most new age guy in the whole freaking world. But when we were doing the first season, when we were trying to exercise Bob out of Leland, and somebody said, well, somebody should have gone for help. And I went, I'll go. Because I did not want to be in that room calling on that demon. I didn't know what would come. Sometimes you call on stuff, you're going to get something you really don't want to deal with. But oh yeah, there were definite times out there where, sometimes when you're doing a film or something, I've been on a couple of films where, you start singing or chanting or somebody else is singing, or there's some old person out there, like, all of a sudden something else that had nothing to do with the film will come around.
Alexandria would like to know, what is the role that you turned down that you wish you'd accepted? And alternatively, what is the role you wish you'd been offered and had a chance to do?
I don't know. John Fusco that wrote Young Guns, I would have liked to have been the part that Lou Diamond Phillips played. I was too old to do it, and but I still would have liked to have done it. God, I don't know. I don't think there's anything that I turned down that I regret. I got pretty good choices on stuff, and yeah, Dune. When Dune was, I actually went down to read for Dune, and Kyle is a wonderful actor and a friend of mine, but I would have put an interesting spin on Dune. That was a young warrior guy. Real excited to see the new one.
So what are all the musical instruments that you play?
I play traditional native flute. I'm a traditional drummer and singer, not a real good one, but I can do it. Play the violin, the fiddle, mandolin, bass, the accordion, which is the first instrument I learned to play. A lot of my family would, down in Arizona, there was, wasn't a lot of TV or anything. Everybody played music, and my uncles would sit around, and there's a type of music called chicken scratch. It's only indigenous to Southern Arizona down there to the native people, and a lot of accordion music. And I ran from the accordion for years, and then I thought to myself, a while back, oh, they used to play Beatles songs and Hank Williams and and old rhythm and blues stuff. So I picked up the accordion, and I still want to try and master. But I was a really good violin player, really good fiddle player, and could play the mandolin, but I just really never had that. And a really bad guitar player.
Your chickens seem to appreciate your accordion playing.
they're my best audience, the chickens. A lot of times Penny will go, who are you talking to out there, chickens?
Do you have any thoughts surrounding the entity Judy in the new Twin Peaks? Love you, you're the best, says Miles.
No. Gee, that's a great mystery, Herd. It's the one I just don't quite get.
A lot of people are hoping that more silver logs are in the works. I will just put that out there. It's not really.
People on one guy, that's the most I've ever made of anything in my life, Usually I'll make one piece of something, and yeah, but there'll be more. They usually come out in batches of 30, 35. That's about all the guy can do for me at one time. I could go with some big company, but they don't do them as well as I got a new arrowhead in the works. I always wanted to cast an arrowhead. I see them, but some of them are so bad. And I said, I'm going to cast the most perfect arrowhead. And I realized I found one again. I found it when I was really young down in Arizona. It's a perfect arrowhead. And it was made out of an old glass bottle, the old blue glass bottles, So I've got that casted, and that'll probably come in the end of the month. But, there might be 30 of those. I'm sorry, I would just want everybody to get one, but, I'm pretty slow at it.
Michael, have you watched the show Longmire?
Mm-hmm.
And how did you feel about the way the Indigenous were portrayed in it?
It's okay, but it's Walker, Texas Ranger. There's a new show that I guess they had to cancel for some reason called Trickster, but which is really interesting, all native show. But North of 60 was amazing. Nobody was a medicine man or anything. It was about people trying to raise their families, way out in the remote reservation. And I played a bush pilot, and it was just wonderful to do. And the lead star, Tina Keeper, and I are still really good friends. And she was the star, and she played a native Mountie, and later on she became part of the tribal government up there, and it was just a joy. Real life, yeah. But man, I can't take cold weather. I'm from Southern California, Arizona. It gets below 70 degrees. I'm in the backyard with paper and pen. He goes, "What are you doing?" I'm going, "Acapulco, Palm Springs, Honolulu." It was so cold there. We were way up in Alberta, and I turned on my TV and I heard something I never heard in my whole life. "Don't go outside today. Your eyes will freeze." I go, "I mean, your eyes will freeze." "Yeah, your eyes will freeze." And why do you people live here? I grew up, we go to, Grandma would take me down to Arizona, would take me out of, everybody in summertime, they're going to the beach and everything. I had to go back and be in the desert. It'd be 110 degrees, but it was such a wonderful place. I realized, later in my life, I would get on my horse and ride and not see another person. And there were treasures everywhere. I have one of my prized possessions is an old tequila bottle from 1920 on I think it's a pewter plate. Yeah, go get the bottle. And it's everything that my mom and my grandma found down there, pushed into dough. It's old soldiers' buttons and seashells from the Gulf, and Victorian jewelry and coins and doll faces. But there were so many, look at this, look, so many treasures down there in the desert for a young person to go find. Found a bugle. And then we would go in these, Grandma would go, "Don't go in the mines." Of course, we're going in the mines, and find these old pieces of dynamite that we would play with. I found out later were like could have blown your finger off, and rattlesnakes. And we went in, I was 10 and was with one of my cousins, and we went into this old mine, and the dog stopped immediately. Dog knew there was something. And I put my flashlight, and there had to be maybe 400 or 500 rattlesnakes hibernating down there. And they're not asleep, they're still moving, and they're all looking at you. And we just stopped. I mean, we were frozen, and that's a sight I will never forget. But I would see, cougars down there and all kinds of neat stuff. And there were nothing on the border back then. There were just little surveyor stakes. And Grandma would go, "Don't watch the stakes so you don't go into Mexico," you know.
Michael, did you ever get to meet David Bowie?
No, I would have loved to meet Bowie. I really, you
What
know.
about Keith Moon?
You love it. Jen loves the Keith Moon story. There was a very famous pub down in Los Angeles, you know, and all the rockers were in there, and, you know, 70s, 60s rockers in there. One day we hear this, bam, and all this water comes out of the bathroom, and Keith Moon comes out, and he had pulled the wall unit out, and he went, "Look." But yeah, you know, like I said, place up in Topanga, there were a lot of musicians that lived up there. You know, a lot of old 60s musicians lived there. You know, Marianne Faithfull was my neighbor. She gave me a horse. Nobody rode the horse. They fed him very well with this horse, was you know, about 200-300 pounds overweight. And he had one pierced ear. They pierced his ear. His name was Jimmy Rotten. But Taj Mahal was my neighbor up there, and a lot of old 60s rock and roll, Canned Heat, Electric Light Orchestra. You know, there was a very famous pub up there that people, you know, one night we played in there and with Big Mama Thornton, Neil Young, and
Barbecue story.
Yeah. Oh, the barbecue story. Penny likes the barbecue. So I first moved into Topanga, and there was a American Legion up there. And they had steak night. They had a huge grill, like about a 7-foot grill. And you would come and you would bring whatever you were going to grill. And for 75 cents, you got some salad and a baked potato. So my neighbors are all, you know, first they're kind of leery of the native guy. I had real long braids back then. And I'm going to walk up there and I see this squirrel that had been run over in the road. So I pick it up and I go back to my place and I put it in a plastic bag. And I take it down there and I put it on the grill, and the hair's burning and eyes are popping, and people, they don't want to insult the native guys. So they keep moving their steaks and their hamburgers over, you know, and it's starting to smell really bad. And I went, "I'm kidding." So that was my coming out to the Topanga community. And like I said, Russ Tamlin was my neighbor, you know, so I mean, there were a lot of Twin Peaks kind of people up there.
Okay, we have a couple real insider baseball Twin Peaks questions I'm going to get into. So Stephanie really wants to know what you think about the overall meaning and mythos of Twin Peaks. Is the story overall about settler colonialism and the existential tragedy and violence of settler colonialism mapped on to nuclear technology? Woo. The fact that I can't even suffering always looked like creamed corn made me think about how that's a really ugly colonial version of Native, for example.
I don't think it's about colonialism. What I think it's about, I think that there's layers upon layers of histories and souls that have passed away, and dimensions that people are so busy that they don't bother, you know, to think about it. And that's one thing about, you know, indigenous communities. You know, we know, we're taught growing up, we know that these things exist, and that's what David wants to you know. And David is a kind person. David doesn't really have a dark soul at all. You know, he's you know, he has a wonderment like a young kid, you know. But he wants people to know that there's other things going on, things that if you slow down and you really take a look, that you'll see. And it's about the depth of the dimensions of the history of, you know. And also David is, you know, especially in the second season, to be aware of what technology, especially of the conception of nuclear weapons, what has done to, you know, people. Was really interesting, you know, that whole season, that episode 8, you know, the whole black and white one about the nuclear power and all that stuff. And people go, gee, you didn't get anything in the Emmys. And I go, nobody's going to know who won the Emmys, but they're going to study that episode 8 in film school for the rest of eternity, because it was just brilliant. And I still don't get all of it.
So Clifford and Twin Peaks TMZ want to know, what do you know about Diane Shapiro and Cooper?
Probably the same thing you guys do. God love Cooper. He's just he's just such an interesting character. It's Cooper is, the whole thing was never really about Cooper. Cooper is just the medium between what goes on the surface and what goes on below the surface. But it's like a painting with many, many layers to it. But Diane is, I knew something, there was always a history behind Diane. And, I mean, sometimes these characters, they grow. It's not like they laid this all out and they said, well, this is this, and this person is this, and this person is going here. Sometimes they just name a character, and this character grows and becomes something that they didn't even know where they were going to go.
So questions about your ledger paintings. One, does your experience in TV influence your ledger art? And has David Lynch seen your ledger art?
Oh, he's a fan. That's why he asked me to do the map. He's fascinated by them, And no, TV has nothing to do. Pop culture has nothing to really do. Sometimes I will do a pop culture related painting, but it has nothing to do with the ledger art. The ledger art is an old way of telling a story.
Okay, so here's another one of those really in-depth Twin Peaks ones.
God bless you, fans.
Okay, so Twin Peaks theory, opinion, question.
Mm-hmm.
Serge asks, if Bob was created in a fission explosion, could Mike have been created in a fusion explosion? Mike did say that Bob used to be his familiar, and a fission explosion is required to trigger a fusion explosion. That's a lot of science. Maybe that's the electricity, fusion power. P.S. It's good to see you again. You're awesome. We met a few years ago when you gave a talk in the Mission. I brought a photo of the J. Edgar Hoover's tie clip looking like an owl.
Oh, yeah, I remember. How are you? Yeah. God knows. But again, Lynch is fascinated by electricity. A lot of people, they still don't understand electricity. Where it comes from and how it, what its purpose is.
In late 2019, when rumors were circulating of more Twin Peaks on the horizon, you posted to Instagram a picture of Andy shushing Hawk. Fans reacted excitedly that you might have some inside information about more Twin Peaks upcoming. Do you think?
No, I had nothing to do with it. It's just a coincidence. I'm the last person to know anything that's going on. I'm so remote from the whole community. I'm the last one to know that, I mean, people are going, oh yeah, he's got a big announcement. I'll be the last one. No, that was just I thought it was a great picture.
All right, so this one I've been holding off of because I can't pronounce it. Dominic DeJoseph wants to know, what are your thoughts on the film trilogy Koyaanisqatsi?
Yeah, it's an amazing, again, that's an incredible film. The thoughts, I can't describe it. I just know it in my being, that's something for everybody to watch and just experience. And it's just like it's not a verbal film. The reaction to it are not verbal reactions.
Isn't it the Hopi it's based on the Hopi purification?
Yeah, it's based
times?
on Hopi purification, which is pretty, it's pretty sophisticated science. Native science is, for years, people poo-pooed native science. Well, we knew the world was round and revolved around the sun when Europeans thought they would fall off the edge. The Aztecs invented zero. It's so much native science was lost, and when they were colonized. But we said for years we were all related. And they went, "Isn't that cute?" Well, I'm 2 chromosomes away from the snail darter. We said everything's alive, and went, "Yeah, the rocks are alive." We knew, there's atoms and molecules. We knew these things. So, it's sometimes the ceremonies, people will ask me, "What does this mean?" And I can give kind of an explanation, but it's pretty deep stuff. And sometimes if you're not part of that society, or you're not part of the priesthoods of those, especially in the pueblos, you're not going to know the whole story. But yeah, that's an amazing film. Another film, great film, is The Fast Runner, all in the Inuit language, which, some filmmakers said, "I don't even understand Native culture. That's one of the best films I've ever seen." We're storytellers. That's, we have a history of being storytellers.
Another Twin Peaks question. Miles asks, in Twin Peaks season 3, did you have any input on the scene where Hawk shows Frank Truman his map? That's one of my favorite scenes, and I was curious if you had any say on the information which Hawk gave Frank in that scene.
No, David just said, "Roll it out and tell him what you think."
Question about hot potatoes or hot rocks.
Yeah, I think I explained that. That's the whole thing. That was with the oven mitts, and that's from, if you go back, if you can get on the internet and find out the old Kung Fu series, that's where that came from.
So Allison Ivy Seligson would like to know that her family was disappointed, my Twin Peaks family, that not to go to Memphis for the anniversary party. And would you still?
Me too.
Yes. And would you consider going when the world turns right side up?
Oh, heck yeah. First they asked me, and then they went at the Elvis estate, and they went, "Oh, hell yeah." And I like Memphis. Memphis is an interest. Memphis is part of the South they haven't screwed up yet. Like I said, I played a lot of music down in the South, and they can keep all of Nashville. They kind of made it into like a T-shirt place, but Memphis still's got charm, man. They got great little clubs there, and they took us all out. Last time I was there, all out one night to a place called the Blues Bar, which is just a white building, spray painting the outside said Blues Bar.
Do you ever feel like the story of Twin Peaks is complete, or do you wish for more?
Oh, it's never going to be complete. I mean, the universe is never going to be complete. Stories are never, they don't ever end,
Have you tried Kyle's wine?
No, he didn't even give me one yet. Send me some wine. I'm not a big drinker, but I want some of Kyle's wine. Kyle is he's a sweet guy. He's a really sweet, kind, giving guy,
We're running to the end of the questions here. Toward the end of season 2, did you ever feel like, what the heck am I doing?
No.
When some of the kitschy themes started coming into Twin Peaks, like your reaction, Robin Lively?
What on the question again? Did I ever feel like what?
I just erased it. So
yeah, no,
did you ever wonder what the heck you were doing?
No, I mean, that's one thing about the Hawk. The Hawk is one of the only very few people in Twin Peaks that has an inkling of something's going on. He doesn't know exactly what it is, but the Hawk is kind of he's the ground of the whole thing. I mean, the Hawk, the hawk knows that there's spirits, that there's entities, the hawk knows stuff, That's why the log lady would send messages to the hawk, because she knew that the hawk would understand.
Even if you did try to take a piece of her log.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, she smacked me really hard.
And the last question is actually one that we already answered, but just to say, there's a lot of curiosity about how you and Penny met, and we have recorded this session, which we will eventually post up on to YouTube in the next few days, and we will give everybody who participated the link to that, so you can watch it and share it as you wish. And for those of you who didn't hear still have burning questions about Penny and Michael and how they met, you can catch it on the rerun. Any final thoughts?
Well, just, thank you all for helping movement rights. It's if corporations can have the rights of a human being, so can a river, so can a forest, I mean, these are living things, and that need respect and need people to watch over them. And I don't understand when sometimes we talk about a species is going extinct, and people go, well, I don't care. They don't understand what that means, that everything is connected, and how that breaks a circle of things. And but things are changing. Some of these younger people, I have great hope in the younger people. They're starting to get it. They're starting saying, I don't need a $500 handbag, or I don't need a diamond, and maybe I want to do something for my fellow human beings and for the fellow creatures upon the earth. The newer kids, I think there's a consciousness that really gives me great hope.
Thank you, Michael, for
And when you go check out the YouTube video of this wonderful event, thank you, Michael, that you can also check out some of the other videos of movement rights. I mean, Shannon and I have been working really hard now for quite a while to help shift the culture from thinking about nature, Mother Earth as property, and what we can really do to change all of that. I mean, it's a way forward that is very powerful, and it's about decolonizing ourselves and decolonizing the culture, and moving forward in the best way possible. So take a look at the other videos. Plus, you get to see one of our favorite people in the world, Casey Camp-Horanek, who's a powerful Ponca elder that really has mentored Shannon and I quite a bit, and who's also an actress that's worked with Michael. And
I did a little film with Casey, and we played grandparents of a kid that had some problems, and I've got my long underwear on, and she kisses me on the cheek, and I go, my whole career, that's my first screen kiss, and she goes, that's pathetic. But it has nothing to do with race of people. We were all indigenous tribal people at one time. We all lived on the land, and we all had respect for all living things, and somehow we got turned away from that. But I think for our survival, we're going to have to reevaluate our original instructions.
Thank you, Michael, so much for making this is been quite an experience being in quarantine in this last year, and laughter and community is really hard to come by. And thank you for putting a little bit of that into our day, into our week. I put the links for Movement Rights into the chat, and we hope you check us out and check out some of the videos on our YouTube channel as well. And just appreciate all of you being here. As Michael always says, there's nothing like the Twin Peaks fans, or like no other fans that there is. And I've had a chance to see some of that in the the last couple of events that we've done. And so you really are very special. Some of your questions are pretty interesting.
Yeah, some of you guys are really deep, man. I wish I could, go farther in, but no, I don't.
Thank you all so much for coming. We really
thank you. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
There's my hand. Bye.
Bye.
Big love to y'all. Thank you.